Hello friends and welcome back to Toy Box Nostalgia. I am Douglas. In this episode of Toy Photo Setup, I'm going to take you on a journey behind the scenes as to exactly how I took this epic image of the evil horde emerging from the Fright Zone. The evil horde is hands down my favorite faction from Masters of the Universe. In fact, this is my favorite Masters of the Universe character, I think. At least it's the most unique. This is nuts looking, right? This is Mantenna. This is the Masters of the Universe Classics version of Mantenna, and so are the rest of them in the photo, except for Shadow Weaver. I believe that was a Super 7 Club Grayskull Shadow Weaver. Pretty much the only one I can afford right now until the Masterverse one comes out. But the Fright Zone, just right there, that thing right there. As I mentioned before in previous videos, my hands-down favorite playset when I was a kid. I love that thing. The thing is so cool. I don't know what it is about it. I liked it way more than Grayskull. I remember it was just so cool to me. But it's meant for 5.5-inch figures, the retro figures, or I guess you could fit Origins figures on it too. These are 7, as I mentioned before. So I have to kind of create an illusion that makes these figures look like they fit with that playset, which is kind of rough, kind of hard. Speaking of hard, it's hard as hell to find that damn thing with the snake puppet intact. I guess the latex just dries up and falls apart over time, so if you do find one, snag it, my friends. Alright, with all that horse shit out of the way, let's now dive into the behind the scenes content. Catch you after the break. Alright, so let's kick this off with some camera settings. I'm using an ISO of 100, the aperture was set to 13, the shutter speed is 30 seconds, and the camera was set in aperture priority mode. The exposure compensation I set to plus 2.5, and I'm using a 35mm lens from Canon, which is a macro prime lens. So this is the entire diorama set. As you see, this image was created in a fully dark room, and the only sources of light were just LEDs that were scattered around inside or outside of the diorama. I do this because I like to essentially paint my images. I like to control all of the colors for everything. So let's take a look at the backdrop. The backdrop is 2 large black paper boards, which I got from Michaels and taped together. Let's turn the lights back off and take a closer look at some of the LEDs here. Let's start with the red and yellow, which were behind the Fright Zone. This light up the tree and the back of the Fright Zone. This red and blue light taped above here lit up the top tree and the right side of the Fright Zone, and as you see, it's hitting the tops of some of the characters. Throughout the entire diorama, you see a lot of warm LED candles, which provided some life to the diorama. Here we have a blue LED keychain light, which is spraying light against the right side of the Fright Zone and the right side of the characters. This purple light was lighting up the right side of Shadow Weaver and Horde. This green light was absolutely hands down the star of the show. As you see, I pointed it at this gold reflector, and that splashed an absolutely gorgeous green hue on the backdrop. Because the backdrop was black, the green kind of looks muted and turned out really well in the image. So that's it as far as all of the coloring goes. We'll take a look at some other points of light, but right now all of the coloring, as you see here, was all thought out beforehand when I set up the diorama, and I was like just experimenting with little colors and putting things everywhere. And yeah, that's pretty much how I take mostly all of my images. So besides rim lighting, this is the last point of light. This is a small rig which is set on the right side of the diorama and has a hood on it. The hood is blocking the small rig lamp from hitting the backdrop of the diorama and the back side of the Fright Zone. It essentially is just lighting up the left side of the foreground figurines, or the subjects there. As far as the rim lighting goes, that's the last point of lighting that I want to talk to you guys about. I accomplished that again with some LED keychain lights. So to accomplish rim lighting, I used this white LED keychain right here, which is very harsh, bright white light. I put some frog tape around it to focus the light, so it didn't splash on some of the other backdrops or anything else. And this is how I light stuff up here. I just kind of randomly select areas that are kind of dark, and I almost always put it above and behind or at an angle, kind of like this, how I did this like this way with Mantenna. Just to create like a white hue around some of the foreground subjects to make them pop out or stick out. As you see here, Grizzlor lit up really well when the light was behind it, but I did it about this far away because I didn't want it to be too harsh. I just kind of wanted to light the tips of his fur, and finally I hit the right side of the Fright Zone just to light it up a bit. So this is the Club Grayskull Super 7 version of Shadow Weaver. I just looked it up. I love Shadow Weaver. I love her. She's just so cool. And if you love what you saw, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button to see more. Also, leave a comment. I'm always looking for criticism on how to take better photos, so if you know a way, or if you could tell me what's wrong with the photos or what you would change in the photos, I'd highly appreciate it. So, one more thing I gotta say is that the Smug Mug site is absolutely free. The link is in the bio. It's not even being tracked. Like, I don't even know who's looking at it. It's just a huge collection of photo albums of many different toy lines and photos that I think you may enjoy if you stay to the end of this video. So, thank you so much, my friends. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and collect and shoot.